That was good enough to eat.
We gotta get to the meeting then. Oh. Successful.
Russ Mason, if you can hear us, can you unmute yourself or give me a thumbs up? I'd just like to check to see that people can hear us.
My microphone wasn't on.
Okay, thanks, Russ.
I'll have one bit about that. No. Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome everybody here tonight. Reminder that we are being recorded, so say can be listened to later. We'll start out. Call members.
Okay, Greg McManaway,
Present.
Dan Osborne, Dan online, absent, Schultz Anderson.
Here.
Chester Goot,
Here.
John Miller,
Here.
Bob Cooper.
Here.
Like when it's absent. Oh, sorry.
Everybody want to stand? Flag.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everybody had a chance to look at the October 18th minutes. The comments on it, changes. Good. Entertain your motion to approve. So move.
Second.
First and second. Favor?
Aye.
All right, the agenda, we have a public hearing, 2022-P99361. Application filed with James Easterday. And for Sage Road II LLC. Correct. I'll just read what's out here, and you can then approve with plan unit development to allow construction of multiple private structures and private recreational facilities on a 53-acre parcel by the applicant. Property owner seeks to rezone the property from S1 to PUD with the plan unit development. Address of the property is 18997 28 Road. Culver.
Good evening.
Oh, yeah.
I motion that we open the public hearing. Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Unanimous?
Yeah. What do you want me to go or the public? Okay, yes, I'm James Easterday for the record, and we are seeking PUD designation. These materials are in your materials, but they're a little more readable in terms of dimensions and such. Location wise, this property is what I, Culver kid call the old Marshall County Ready Mix facility down on 20th Road. It consists of 53.36 acres. To get there, you can take Old 17 south to 20th, turn right about 20. What we are seeking is to be able to put 3 different little complexes on this 53 acres. And in talking with building commissioner and others, and in fact, BZA members it was felt that the appropriate way to go with this would be a planned unit development, because we're looking at multiple structures on the same property. The structures we're looking at is what we call the barn. It's really a storage facility. If you look at the plans for it, the main floor is primarily boat storage, things like that. It would be taking place a lot of the storage that presently exists in the present structure that's on the southwest corner of that property. And as we've indicated all the way through these events, that structure that's on the southwest corner is coming down. That's going to be removed and replaced by a different structure. Then on the east side of what I call the pond or the lake is what we call the clubhouse structure, and that's primarily living, entertainment, recreational areas. And then on the southwest corner, is what we're calling the field house, and that's predominantly recreational area. And I have Mr. Rob Sears here, who is the designer architect. I'll let him explain those various projects and answer any questions you might have.
Good evening. My name is Rob Sears. I'm a principal and owner at Sears Architects in Grand Rapids, Michigan. As Jim sort of laid out, we've got 3 buildings on the site. The barn, which is on the upper left there, that's basically storage for boats, cars, tractor, kind of some maintenance equipment for the property. The building on the right, on the east side, is the clubhouse, and it's, again, as Jim alluded to, there's going to be dining in there, a kitchen, service facilities like that. And then the last building, the field house, that's essentially a gym. So that's gonna be a gym with a pool and locker rooms. Each building is about 10,000 square feet or less. The barn is about 9,500 square feet. Clubhouse is about 9,500 square feet, and the field house is about 8,000 square feet. We've been working very closely with obviously with zoning to make sure we're zoning compliant. Assuming we can get a PUD, we've been looking very closely at the wetlands and various other components of the site. And our lot area coverage, green space, we've got 83% of the site is green space. So there's a lot of green space on the site. In a nutshell, that's kind of it. The barn you'll be able to see from 20A. As you can see from the topography, this is stepped up a little bit. These 2 buildings, we will not be able to see at all. The field house, the gym, is going to be in the same spot as the existing metal pole building at the back of the corner now. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. general, specific, or best I can.
The setbacks met.
Yes, sir. On this site plan, we put all the setbacks to meet property line. The barn on 20A is 122 feet from the road and 131 feet from the 15-yard-foot setback. The field house is 60 feet from the west property line and 170 feet from the south property line. And the clubhouse is 477 feet from 20A and 285 feet from its east property line.
And this is a single family unit, right?
Yes, yes, so this is all privately owned by one family. It's not open to the public. This is solely, exclusively, and 100% for the family use.
What kind of height?
Our barn is 34 feet. We're allowed 35. We're at 34, 2.5, I believe. Our silo, we had a variance for, and we got that, and that is at 44 feet, 6 inches. The clubhouse, we have not finished the engineering drawings yet, but we're thinking that's going to probably be 26 feet. And the same with the field house.
I noticed on the map near the clubhouse, there are two structures identified as casitas. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Those are 1-bedroom cottages for family overflow when they're in town. Each casita has 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. And they're connected with a footpath.
There's no plans for making this a business venture in the future.
0. Our client has said he wants this to be a legacy for his family and with the PUD, if a PUD is approved, it wouldn't be allowed to ever be taken commercial.
I know you probably have to deal with the county, I guess, as far as septic systems for these, and I'm sure you got quite a bit of them up there.
We do.
Yeah.
And I've got a very descriptive, on each board, we've got, or on your sheets, we've got a narrative for each thing. Wastewater, other items. But I've got an updated narrative of the wastewater. Essentially what we're doing is we're putting in a septic system for each unit, for each building. We're putting in a septic field for each unit, for each building, they're calling each structure unit, septic field for each one. Then we're outside of the septic field, we're also having an additional septic system that will take that wastewater and process that wastewater as well.
How are you planning on building this? Is it gonna be all one shot building it, or are you gonna go in phases as far as one first and then part of the timeline? There would be a timeline, I'm sure. For
Sure, you bet. What we're planning on kind of building them all at once, but they will be stepped. So the first project is going to be the barn. I'd like to break ground on that in the spring. The second would be the clubhouse. We'd like to break ground on that in late summer. And the third would be the field house. That might be the fall. So it would, as far as traffic concentration and construction concentration, it'll all be at one period. It's not going to be, one thing today and another thing in 5 years, and another thing in 10 years. It'll all be at once.
Just trying to type and listen at the same time. I was trying to type and listen at the same time, which doesn't always go well. Can you tell me about the timeline again on groundbreaking for the clubhouse?
Oh, sure. So we're planning on breaking ground on the barn in the spring.
Okay.
and then breaking ground in the clubhouse late summer.
Okay.
And possibly breaking ground on the field house and gym late fall or next spring.
Okay.
The idea is we get all the construction happening, different buildings, but all the construction will be happening at once. And part of that is just the availability of resources. You know, there's only so many.
I understand construction, because you're gonna be going this one and then that one could
Yeah.
have started, but there's something else we don't have.
Yeah, so, you know, ideally, the electrician can start on one, and by the time the next one's ready, you can walk down that road and work on the next one.
Right, I think Chester asked this question already, but the clubhouse itself is a single family unit?
Yes.
Okay,
Can you show us on the map where the septic tanks are gonna converge on the HPD's system? It says east of the lake, and I'm just trying to picture it, like where the main one's going to be.
This is what we're referring to as lake pond. In one of the sheets in here, it's, there's a septic plan. Don't have it on the board.
It's the third one, third one in.
Third one, this,
Yeah.
it's the one.
Yeah.
Grass is way out there.
You see how?
At the- For Marshall County, I know as far as the size and the court. Have you dealt with the county as far as, you know, technology?
We have, yeah, so we've been working with them. The individuals we've been working with, honestly, their names slips my mind. But we've been working very closely with the county, and Jim has been working on that.
Don't want to gump up the works, but actually we started with the state of Indiana, thinking we needed to be there. And because we had 3 different units, and the state said, no, you're in the wrong place, you need to go back to county. So we did, and we've been working very closely with the county since then. Right.
Max occupancy.
What?
Max occupancy.
Roughly. Not really. You know, the casitas are just for family overflow. You know, the intent is no one's gonna live here. With that overflow, if someone there for a weekend, they overflow, they can stay there. There's 2 bedrooms in the barn, same thing, overflow. So, yeah, there's, with PUD and looking at it residentially, there's some max occupancy requirements, so.
What, as far as the existing house, I know under F1, it was supposed to be removed, but now since it's
Right.
under PUD, it does.
I haven't really decided, I'm just talking off the top of my head, but I have a meeting Thursday night with the BZA on another matter. And I was gonna broach to you folks on Thursday night, the possibility of extending the time to tear down that process, but we're still gonna tear it down. But I think the original variance requirement was 6 months after start of construction. And we may ask for a little more time and see what your thoughts are on that. We're told, I don't know this personally, but we're told that someone is going to actually take the building away. They're gonna actually take it for it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So the whole building is actually gonna be removed.
Removed from the premises, yes.
Conceptually, once the barn is done, everything that's in, conceptually, once this new barn is done, everything that's in the metal pole building is gonna go into that barn.
That was the whole proposal before. as
Right,
far as that.
right.
That's wondering.
Correct.
Question I really confused as far as really what protocol would actually be for drainage on the silo. Under the S1, that, would that variance still stand? Can you tell me?
Ty Adley and I talked about that earlier today. He didn't see an issue with moving on to a PUD. It's still holding to the variance on the individual building.
As long as we have clarification on that, because that was just a question and I wasn't familiar enough with changing PUD and the variance being proceeded with, so I just want to make sure that was brought up. Membership. Questions or concerns?
Just getting that last bit about, talking about the fire.
It's not, sorry, I'm going back to the whole septic system. It's not going to disturb the wetlands and it is
Is
okayed by DNR and everything going
Yep,
around
yep,
there.
we're in the
and have that
process.
Open field.
we're 99% to the finish line on that. That's all going through process. And the septic is gonna,
Cause I can see it pool, and then it comes out to tank, you know.
yeah, it comes out over here. This is gonna be a directional bore underneath the here. And no wetlands are touched or impacted or anything.
Okay.
Anywhere on the site.
Which I know with that being that way, I'm sure the health department would probably be an issue with them as well, so
Yeah, if we were touching the wetland.
if you were touching it.
Are all the buildings gonna have fire suppression systems?
We're in the process of looking at that right now. Chances are very solid that the barn will have fire suppression in the utility side of the barn, so not the offices, but where vehicles are stored. We're fairly certain we're gonna have fire suppression there. We talked to the fire marshal and he said a dry system would be okay there. Just in the barn. And then we're also, right now, it's still in the design process, but we're considering fire suppression in the clubhouse. Question for me?
I'm not sure who it's gonna be for. I mean, I'd like to know first, maybe if this family would adopt me. I could bring them some extra grandkids, a couple of stray cats. We'd be very happy. But, and this might be a message for you, Jim, as an Easterday. What was the reason behind pursuing being PUD? And that's kind of for me
Well-
being on BZA and stuff. I just want to kind of.
We started as a variance, and the more we got into the variance, the more people said, including a couple members of the BZA,
Yeah.
well, why don't you look at this as a PUD, because we think it more accurately reflects the definition of a PUD. And I'll be blunt, the very first time they said that, I said, oh, PUD is mixed use. And they said, not in our ordinance, it's not mixed use. It's not mixed use. So I went back and researched it rather extensively. And if you look at the purpose and definition of a PUD, on 010 purpose, the purpose of the PUD is to encourage flexibility in the development of land in order to promote its appropriate use, to improve the design characteristics and quality of the new development, be they residential, commercial, or industrial. So it fell squarely within a PUD, and that's why we went that direction.
And to further answer your question as well, I had a discussion with Ty as well over the same issue.
Yeah.
Because I know previously with the commercial use, multiple use.
Yeah.
And Ty Adley, I mean, he explained it explicitly to me, you know, under circumstances, what they're wanting to do. And my first concern was as far as, we were accused in the past of making, loaning to fit a contractor or the landowner to do whatever they wanted to without any, whatever, another contractor was, but under a plan unit development for this right here, it's open for somebody with that property that want to use for that property actually to apply.
And does it go in like, does that make it possible to be a residential TIF on any level, or is that just, it's not, it wouldn't be because it's just that one property and it's basically a private property, so no.
Yeah.
It's not ours.
And it's not in the town. Okay, well, there's that.
One part.
Just one parcel.
Yeah, okay.
And yeah, because I was looking, some positions might be where you want to divide property up to make the three parcels,
Right.
in accordance with the zone. But according to Ty Adler, the planning director.
Yeah.
And he said, no, it's actually according to the way the ordinance is written and everything else. I mean, up to actually probably the town council, I guess, to probably approve, but as far as review and it's a legitimate application.
Hey Barry, Paul the Benedictus, I live at 424 Forest Place.
I forgot to say.
He lives at 424 Forest Place too. Two questions. The first is, a couple of meetings ago, the town council president, Bill Githens, said in response to the Dunes development, that there are 20 steps a development goes through in this town before, from start to finish. And I can't find that anywhere. And I want to know, where is this in the process? So where is planning commission? Are you step 2? Are you step 18? As something's going from a start of a concept to a development being authorized and groundbreaking.
There's several, I mean, actually, there's 2 steps, but as far as the contractor or the homeowner, there's several things that they have to come up with and present as far as before a permit's ever even
Okay.
admitted. Now, as far as the 20 steps, I don't know exactly how many steps you want to
Well,
take.
I'll maybe go back to Bill, but I
Yeah,
just want to understand for any development,
Yeah.
what's so,
But I
what's
mean,
going on.
they will have to have their development process,
Mhm.
shown to, presented
Starts with that application.
with that
step.
application.
So the
Right
technical review or any other
Right
things like
now.
that. Or,
Yeah.
so this is the early part of the
This
process.
is the first step.
Okay, well, that's,
Step 1.
1, 2, and 3, really.
Well, it's actually.
We've already been to
It's
TRC.
actually 2, 3, and 4, but yeah.
Yeah,
this
okay,
TRC is the one
confusing.
first step.
Okay, so it's
So technical, it
Yeah.
happened, you already went to technical.
We already went.
They've
there.
already
This
been
is
in
after.
review committee.
And we're doing
So
the
this is,
preliminary and final tonight. Then it would go to the council, then it goes back to the technical review committee
Right.
for building permits. And that would be the process that
I
I.
would love to see something written
Right.
so I could follow.
Right.
But I appreciate, now I know this is the early, it's in the sooner rather than the back end.
but we have to still have a secondary.
And I'm sorry, Daniel Sherman, attorney for some Culver residents. Along those lines, this combined the first step with the preliminary and the secondary altogether. You just, is this a time saving measure, I assume?
Yep.
then?
If they have all the information and everything we need tonight, then we could actually use this. You can have primary and secondary at the same time. We haven't got far enough to know whether all this stuff has actually been presented yet, so I can't answer your question as far as this is about.
Well, I think you did. Thank you.
Yeah, because I mean, it's, they don't have their, I gotta go through the list, but,
Construction schedule,
the construction schedules,
landscape plan.
yeah, which I know the landscape plan.
Those
has
are all
been, but-
spoken to in the supplementary.
Yeah.
material.
If they're in your packets,
Yeah, they're in the package.
they present.
Everything's right here, what you presented. And I haven't a chance to go through all of it either yet. But we will when
One more question.
The 20 steps, I don't know what Bill was referring to, but usually it starts with the application itself. That then notifies us. And we have to, like, it comes to the building commissioner, an application's been filed for plan commission rezoning. Then they have to schedule a TRC meeting. They go through that meeting, and then they come here for a public hearing, then it goes to council and back to TRC.
Is that written down somewhere?
It's outlined in our zoning ordinance.
So the zoning ordinance tells how development of the project.
Yeah,
goes from that
and it
development.
talks about that primary review and secondary review as well. So if during the primary review, they're assessing the site plan at this public hearing, you can do secondary review if you have construction schedule and you have that landscape plan outlined at this meeting. Sometimes they do that separately, but if at all, at any point in time, they change their plan, they have to come back. That site plan can't change, like, they can't add a fourth building, for example, or do some major change to the plan. They'd have to go right back through the whole process again.
And Barry, the reason I'm asking this, I want to understand at what point, if I'm interested as a citizen, where do I sit in and what's happened and what hasn't happened? Or what did I miss? That's what I'm trying to understand. So,
Yeah,
so I'll go, I guess I'll look through the book, the ordinance book and find that. The second question, based on, what Rob and Jim have talked about, the owners of the property called it a legacy. So they're, I'm assuming that's a permanent, once they establish this, it's however they do it, but that's 53 acres within the zoning area of Culver.
Right. Significant
Property being, by changing the zoning, it's going to be basically taken out of the future. I mean, they own it, but it's zoned a particular way and will stay that way. Does that fit in any plan that we have? Is this part of our plan for the development of this part of the area?
I asked Ty Adley the same question, and he told me that it is not 100% used as development for the town. But if you want to call it development for the community, as far as within the zoning, which is 2-mile boundary,
Right.
it can be, because if it's a development that is used in a way that couldn't be used in any other zone other than a PUD, then it's within, it's like a, I hate to say it, an experimental,
Yeah.
but as far as, a lot of things in town development, whatever, as far as community, you try this or whatever, but under that trial or whatever you want to call it, and I don't like to be held per my verbiage, but it actually allows to go forward with what they want to do, to where it could.
Okay, so I
naturally be
understand it's
something.
permissible,
Permissible.
and it's their property. I just, does it, and it fits in with the plan that we have for what the future looks like for Culver. I'm just asking that, does it fit in with the plan, or is it neutral? I'm just trying to understand, because I'm assuming that's part of coming here. We had a plan for roughly what these areas would look like as we develop them.
But that's private, no, that's
And it's
private.
private,
They're
it
not
is.
doing anything, this
And
it's different than,
and seeking a change.
So it kind of has a little boundary there as far as
Yeah.
what you want to actually
I
label.
mean, I'm with Leah. I mean,
They just
I
live
would
in
be,
the
I'd love to be
line of
adopted
property.
to
Yeah, right.
work that,
Yeah.
but, just
Yeah.
give me an ATV and I drive around it for them. Yeah, I'm just trying to understand as long as things fit. 'Cause
Right.
That's a big piece of property and, just
Yeah,
want to
and I
understand.
appreciate your question, because I had the same question.
If I may speak to that briefly, I actually read the 127 pages of the comprehensive plan. And we urge to you that it does meet the comprehensive plan, specifically on page 43, 51, and 52. They talk about objectives. They talk about the use and development to accommodate a variety of lot sizes, unit sizes, types, and to allow greater flexibility in developing. They talk about recognizing the importance of second home market for local economy. That's real big in the Culver, probably just Culver,
Yeah.
comprehensive plan, the lake. and
Flexibility was the word.
The flexibility and the second home market and the economic development based upon having people come in to recreate, et cetera. And then they talked about land use being predominantly single family for smaller lot, traditional neighborhoods to much larger estates, and this is the estate, if you will. And they talked about the development should preserve environmental features, and we've done everything we can in this process to do that. We've been real careful with the septic system. We've been real careful with the wetlands issue. We're looking at still drainage and water retention. All the water is going to go to what we call the lake, but recently we decided we're probably going to filter it on the way and run it through some traps, if you will. And so we think we've been very good environmentally. So we think we've met the comprehensive plan.
And Mr. Easterday, just to clarify, the recreation is just for the owners and they're invitees. This is not going to be open to the public.
That's exactly right. I want to emphasize that this is not going to be a commercial venture in any way, shape, or form. Nobody's going to hunt on the property. Nobody's going to do anything like that. This is, when I talked to the ultimate owner, he said, my legacy to my family is to have them enjoy Culver and Lake Maxinkuckee like I did, and to come down here and play. And that's what it's all about.
And I note that Sage Road II LLC is it's not registered in Indiana, but it's only going to hold the title of this property and develop it.
Actually, if you listen to which you wouldn't have, but I do indicate that we're going to change it to another LLC that is going to be designed strictly for the construction and management and payment of bills on this property, but it's going to be owned by exactly the same people. That's in the material.
Did notice, it looks like your setbacks are set for S1 and not PUD, which I don't think it'll affect anything.
What's the PUD that?
Yeah. 50, which I don't think.
The reason I used the other setbacks when we did that was because, and I don't want to go there, but we were trying to figure out if there would be any variances required from the previous zoning because of something I read from a Marshall Circuit Court.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm sure you read the 50 foot.
But we don't have any issues there.
No, I don't think we
Yeah,
will.
I mean,
Because as he said, on the barn, it's 122.8 feet from 20th Road on the north, and on the west, it's 131 feet. And then from the clubhouse, it's 477.2 feet from the east property line.
in the field house, there's only one that,
Yeah, the field house from the west line is 59.4. More than the 50.
that's your shortest point.
Yeah, and then the south is 169. So, yeah.
Okay. Everybody online.
Anyone online have input on this? Seeing anyone unmuting themselves? In the chat.
Under the public hearing when it was published, I mean, is it publication as far as doing the primary and secondary at the same time?
Your notice is in your packet, but it specifically says that.
Yeah, I know. I just make sure as far as being publicized as that, I don't know if we would, I'm asking, what's the call on that?
Yeah,
Is it proper to go ahead with that if we so desired, or because it doesn't say other than PUD?
yeah. I mean, I only pulled this narrative for the agenda. Karen probably pulled that off for the agenda. But you have the public notice in the packet and it covers it.
Okay.
And it also went out to the neighboring property owners.
WTCA last night mentioned it. I'm surprised.
Do I?
WTCA mentioned it last night,
Oh, really?
that it was a preliminary and a secondary review, and I thought, I've never seen them notice anything.
And Mr. Easterday, you did state also it went through technical review.
Yes, it
Yes,
did.
it
And
did.
they recommended approval to the board.
Those minutes for TRC haven't been approved yet, but they, at the TRC meeting, it was recommended. As were the other cases we've had.
So did you find any as far as anything that we be missing in this packet? Under even the development standards, as far as when that goes,
Mr. Yesterday's been in a couple of times to go over it.
okay, as far as timeline, that frame.
Yeah, we will still have to publish this for the town council as well.
Right.
And it'll probably get published next Wednesday, because that's the next time that we publish for the Culver Citizen. And since the ordinance still reads that we have to publish in the Culver Citizen, we'll have to publish through there. So it will end up being probably the second meeting of December. Yeah, sure.
Does anybody have anything else? Ask, you know, or
I guess the only question I have is if we do first, it's understandable, but if we do second, wouldn't we need a rough design of the Castillas?
we would have to have the,
Because that would be almost final design.
We asked that question when we came in, and they said, no, we wouldn't, as long as we had basically the shell. And then it would go back to the technical review committee to determine whether or not it met the requirements for technical review.
which that would require. It wouldn't.
And we know-
Fall under your secondary,
Yeah, we go back to them for the building.
yeah, it would actually
They
be,
can't get the permit until they go back through TRC after this,
right,
after this
Which-
council.
showing the full site plan as far as what they will.
So for some reason, one of those buildings didn't meet code, or like the setback was 5 feet or something, we'd be like, oh, hold it up. Now you gotta go to BZA or whatever the case is.
Mhm.
They can't get the permit until it goes through that whole cycle.
If they would want to build back at the barn for whatever reason, or what they've got. Still have to come back before. Take a review committee before they can even proceed with that.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of the question, because I see like they've got some of the rough outlines of what they want to do, not finalized of what the internal final design is going to be, and that's why I was just,
Right.
first pass, second pass kind of thing. The first pass, yes, second pass.
Right, I know what you're saying. Right now, I mean, we're here to do the zoning,
Mhm.
and basically they brought enough in here to proceed with the actual PUD.
Yeah, because then it's still gonna go up to the council and then back down and.
Questions? Have a motion to close public hearing.
I motion we close the public hearing. Second.
Favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. I guess. Anybody has any comment about this? Right here? See. Monroe is, Chairman.
Yeah, I had no problem with the plan, and Jim walked through the PUD and our zoning ordinance to justify every paragraph of it when we went through this. This meets setbacks in any zone I think we have, height requirements, impervious surface, all of it. I think Paul made a good point about planning and what land usage is for, and I want to keep that point in mind because as we're doing the current comp plan, we want to schedule with Plan Commission your next meeting with NACOG. We clearly have identified certain areas of town where there's only so much growth within the incorporated limits. This is obviously outside of incorporated limits, but that's the whole point of the comp plan is to identify types, land usages, diversity of types, of what type of housing you want, what type of development you want, et cetera. But I don't have any issue with this.
Any questions from that? I will say too, I know Paul brought that up about the use of the property as far as being like territory. And one of my questions was because I was concerned because all our PUDs in the past have ever actually been annexed and used, you know, for actual town benefit as much as property.
Too long miles to run utilities too.
Miles, yeah. We wouldn't annex it because we couldn't even.
Right.
We can't afford to build a barn, let alone put the.
I'm sure everyone between here and the 2 miles would agree with the annex either.
Yeah, I mean, that would probably be spot on me for sure. But anyway, that was a concern of mine, and that's the reason I was even asking the question. But that being said, I mean, everything that I can find, what they presented would be acceptable as far as using primary review and secondary review together. And that would be in the motion. Or is it anybody wants to proceed at that time? Knowing that you can either make the motion to move this forward. If you don't approve, say you don't approve. I mean, it's a voting process. Everybody has their own opinions and idea.
Here, just to clarify, that would be requirements for primary and secondary review that have been met and recommends to the town council they rezone as PUD.
That a motion.
I'm just clarifying. Yes, I am willing to make that motion. However, I would move that we,
As presented.
as presented, thank you, and recommend to the town council that they rezone the property PUD.
Second. Favor? By saying
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Yes.
We thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for making it short and sweet on that part.
Get home before it gets snowed in.
No.
I don't say that.
Oh my gosh.
I just want to appreciate everybody else that came in. Jeff? Oh, that's great. Greg, on that phone, let's get your work to say. Hey, yeah, I would. No, I really would. I know you do well.
Yeah.
I would keep it.
Yeah, we still need to approve some minutes there, so there's nothing new, but everything that came through. It was moving on to the permit stage. And I did want to add to that, one of the ones that came through, Barry and I did go look out at, Lake is what you call it.
Yeah. Hot Lake, Lost
Because
Lake.
there's two properties out there we wanted to check on, and one was doing a major renovation, basically, and he went and got a permit the day we talked to him. The other one, I'm still investigating. I do have some information on that one. It's basically, there's what looks like an accessory structure hooked up to power. That they did get a permit for apparently. But their intention is to build a primary residence on that property, according to the NIPSCO person we spoke to. We don't know if that's accurate or not, so Bob and I are still trying to figure that out, because it looks like a really small lot that might be non-conforming.
Right, now, I was thinking that
So
too.
the accessory structure should never have been put on it without a primary there, so.
They did not have a permit for the structure.
Right, but on Beacon, and I'm asking Titus, because when you click on that particular lot, it looks like it's connected to one across the street. So I don't know if it's one big lot with a road between it, or if
Got a
there's
different name on it.
there could be an error on Beacon as well.
Right, because it did have a different name as far as on the property than what.
The house did, but not the little piece of land.
Piece of land didn't have.
There's two pieces of land connected by road, and then there's another one with a house on it across the road. Yeah,
Back to west.
yeah. So we're still trying to figure out what's going on there, but
Yeah, but the house on the west, on the other side of the road, does have a mailbox with an address. And this property has a mailbox with an address. And it's got the little small accessory structure,
it looks,
almost looks like a mini house.
yeah, there's even a welcome mat.
And there's a wellness on the door, but it's got the power, but it's like a
Yeah.
temporary power service, you know. But it's got the disconnect, the meter, everything. It's on the road.
Kind of looks that way.
Well, the people have been coming in the RV and parking there, like big Winnebago.
And there is sort of a cement slab that goes up to the structure. So,
So, I mean, yeah, it's actually set on the concrete pad. It was pulled.
There's an accessory structure right there right now.
Yes,
it doesn't look like a garage, it's more like a storage shed kind of look.
got the, yeah, it's got the little stable top.
A pretty-
window. Very nice, very
Yeah.
nice. And it's got a porch. It's got a porch.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of. a
But I
little
mean-
porch.
Either way, I mean, it's still in violation somewhere.
Yeah. Baller zoning.
Have you checked to see if it's a tiny home?
Hmm?
Have you checked to see if it's a tiny home?
No, the door was locked and we couldn't see it, so
Yeah, there's not, what is it, you can see into.
it's got a padlock.
Because I know somebody out in the country does live in one of those sheds that you just bought. And so the legal address, that's why I wasn't sure.
Oh, you mean, out in our zone?
Not in our zoning, out in Marshall County.
Yeah, Marshall County has approved some of their many homes. But yeah, and under this, what Jenny's talking about is the technical view could agenda from the meeting as far as what's been approved. And we do have the last meeting that has not been approved. Well, it has been approved, but it's not been.
Yeah.
Written up. But the other one was Martin Moore. You can,
Yeah, the rooter stand, he is redoing his roof and putting in pervious pavers where it's kind of muddy, where the picnic tables are at. And then he's also adding some more railing, you know how like, here's the roofer stand, here's the picnic table where you order food at the window, and then there's that little thing you can jump down and there's a table.
right down next to the road.
He watched a kid jump down that and almost tumbled to the next
Actually did
level,
tumble.
which is the road.
He actually did tumble into the road, but it was a car.
So
Right.
you won't be able to enter that because there'll be a rail there. And you'll be able to enter it though from the pervious pavers that he's putting where the picnic tables are at.
Notice she's already got the rail on the wall. And the rail she's talking about is on the upper side of the picnic table. There's stairs on each side and you have to use stairs to come down to the over to walk up. They're actually moving the bushes. They- That rested there.
I guess there's a lot of mud that gets in that picnic table area and he doesn't want to pave it because he'd be adding more impervious surface and he wants it to drain properly and look nice and so. That one came before, the one on Hawk Lake and then we had some basic ones like the demo. Not a lot, but
Yeah, we had Derek Keller.
yeah, the building that Grant, I used to own, Derek Keller is renovating that building. To have an apartment on the top floor or an Airbnb. Bottom floor will be kind of like it was when we owned it. The front half will be commercial space. That's zone C2, which allows for bed and breakfast. So he's thinking about making it back, converting it back to an apartment like it was, or an Airbnb space that he'll rent out like weekends and stuff like that. But I think he's going to use the front. He will either use it for his own commercial space or he'll lease it. And the upstairs will be residential.
Yes. And they have an office space anyway.
And just so you know, the fence that went up next to him at the auto building.
Yeah.
I did go out and meet with Oscar because we do have, and I looked at this with Ty. Oscar had met with Chuck a couple of times on this fence, and got permission to put it up to begin with. The unusual thing there is you have an alley and you have a road and there's a 25-foot triangular area where you can't have anything over 2.5 feet high. Well, that area that is included, his building is over 2.5 feet high. It's higher than any fence he could stick there. So, he moved it a little bit more off the road where Chuck gave him like a line he couldn't pass and stay at that 7-foot height. And then the south side where it looks taller than 7 feet to me, but everything looks taller to me. Bob and I went out and measured with him and it was 8 feet. So he was lowering the fence there. And it's a really weird grading in that parking lot. Kind of, sinks toward the back of the property. And he's eventually going to come in and probably have another project there where he wants to add on some space and he wants to regrade the gravel. And so he is doing some regrading to make sure the height's right. But for the most part, we got him kind of in order on what to do with that fence. But it is legit. He did meet with Chuck a couple of times. And his building is more in the visibility there than any fence or vehicle would be. So
That's an old head.
yeah, but he did go back far enough that as you come down that alley, there is a stop sign there. When you look around, you're not looking at fence. And he had enough of it up that I could see that for myself. So,
See,
and I'm short
Finish
enough
up
that if I can see it, the average person.
This is the property next door to
Yeah.
your property.
Yeah,
Okay.
the old auto shop.
yeah, from Steve.
And he had some people messing with a couple of his vehicles there. So that's why he wanted to clean up the look too. So, he's got some vehicles that he works on there.
Any questions anymore for,
Do you want me to just keep doing the building commissioner report?
if you wish, you're on the list.
I'm not gonna do the
You're actually
permit,
catching up some of the older new business.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
the permit report, I'm gonna do on a quarterly basis, because that's how we receive it from the county. Otherwise, it's just me going in and manually counting, and that would be a disaster. Because the way that system is set up, it's not easy for me to filter it the way they can up at the county. But I am asking them to give me more rights to create my own reports. I think they don't want anyone in there messing around, but you can't really screw up the database, so. I'm hoping that they'll let me do some of my own reporting, because otherwise I have to request it from them. We do have, for your December meeting, if you're open to having either a work session or it being part of your agenda, MACOG would like to meet with the Plan Commission to look at land usage, comp planning, get your input. They probably bring in some maps, take a look at what things are zoned now. Is there any area for future growth, or what type of growth do you want to see? The last comprehensive plan has a lot on housing and how we need more diverse types of housing, how we zoned some areas of town, like on the northwest end where Tom Bestie was going to do a PUD, and where Kevin has done some development. That was one area for future growth because we did some annexation there. South end of town, same thing, because it was one of the few places we have available land. But basically, we want to make sure all of you have a voice in that comp plan and get to take a look at it. So MACOG would like to make it convenient when you're already here. We can either meet earlier than you usually do, or we can just make it part of your agenda. If there's a big hearing that night, and there is a possibility you would have a hearing for rezoning, we can always schedule it for January, because I don't want to put that on the same night you have a hearing. Otherwise,
End
we'll-
of December, I would rather see it in January myself. I mean, December.
yeah. I
everything
think
goes
you're
on.
probably gonna have a December meeting though, just as a heads up. I've had so many BZA and Plan Commission inquiries, and there's a couple applications that are saved. They haven't pushed the button yet, but I'll keep you in the loop on that.
I
If
believe
you
it.
don't end up with a hearing, maybe we could do it in December.
I believe in the last hearing, I did mention that we probably would have a December meeting because the way things we're looking as far as things coming through. I think everybody's pretty much aware.
Yeah, BZA will for sure, because we had to redo some of their public notices on things that had expired. Where they thought they could just come in and get BZA to say, oh, we'll give you an extension, but you have to re-advertise. And so Ty held up some permits that I'm still cleaning up. Wasn't sure if you wanted a meeting with Jim Clevenger, but the developer on 415 Lakeshore is planning on going before BZA because of the judge's order on vacating the Plan Commission decision for that rezoning. That seems to be his logical next step. I've talked with the town council about potentially hiring a third party that specializes in zoning to review our PUD section and also our zoning ordinance, maybe as two separate projects. I'm familiar with one planning team out of Indianapolis that hires a couple of zoning experts they know Indiana statute on zoning and code. If you guys are open to that, I know some of the town council members I've talked to thought that might be a good idea. It's almost too much to expect you to go through every line of that zoning ordinance. If we had some experts review it, come back to you and say, hey, here's some of the things we found you might want to reconsider. That might, and a few of you know what some of those issues are already that can help guide those early discussions with a consultant. Like, hey, we know you're going to want to take a close look at this section or this particular thing. So I am going to get a proposal together to see what that would cost, and get back to you all in the town council.
That's a wonderful idea.
I mean, speaking for myself, I would like to hear what an outside third-party expert would have to say. Because I don't even feel like I know enough as to what type of questions I would even ask.
Yeah.
So, I know for myself, I need some guidance.
And there are people who, like, I know, I worked with a community called Otterburn. They were looking at doing Stellar before they canceled Stellar. But they didn't have their own comp plan at the time. They did all their zoning and stuff through the county. So they had to get that together to do stellar. Well, the county in the meantime was saying to their communities, we're not gonna do your zoning and your permitting anymore. You're on your own. And they gave them like a year. So Otterburn put together a comp plan and a zoning ordinance simultaneously. And they brought in some zoning experts to do that. So there are experts out there that do them from scratch. And some that know statute better than others. For example, that resource I emailed you guys has a lot of like guidance on plan commission, BZA, and a lot of it's related to state code, which is a whole nother can of worms. But so that's why I thought we should just go ahead and look into making sure it's as clean
I
as
know we
possible.
had one of those years ago, and it was pretty basic. I mean, I didn't feel like it was in-depth enough because I didn't know enough at the time as far as what questions to even ask as far as procedures and everything else, because
It was too basic.
it was just too basic. I mean, it's no more than what you read and trying to understand what you read
Yeah.
in the ordinance now. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe
thought
the ordinance probably more, but
Take ours and tell me, this is what we see as some possible problems, this is some things that we feel like we should alert them
Yeah.
to.
and
If it doesn't quite align with state
Yeah.
statute, make
And
sure it
actually, I mean,
aligns.
I've been here longer than anybody else here, but I welcome it as well, because there's a lot more for me to learn as well.
Yeah, well, we got kind of fitting in the backside by 415 Lake Shore.
Yeah,
Yeah, and,
Picking up on
but I mean,
that laid out with the 3-foot step back.
right, and I mean, that was, and I'll say this being recorded as well, because that 50-foot setback didn't used to be in our ordinance. Now, I don't know how it was added, but since it was added, then we were, our hand was forced, on that. But that's what I do as far as the judge ruling on that, not necessarily completely legit either.
One thing that was confusing about it is, they wanted to be rezoned. So why would they get a variance? But once you are rezoned, you might still have to get a variance, so it's very confusing which one you do first, like the egg came before the chicken or what?
But a
And I
variance,
guess in this case, the judge is saying, well, you should have gone to ask for a variance on something you hadn't rezoned yet.
but PUD, I mean, Kevin, did you ever have to come for a variance on PUD?
No, generally the
Any-
PUD lets you write those things, but it's just,
The only
this
thing
is a
you're
different
coming for
situation. It's kind of like what you did tonight with the first and the secondary. Our PUD is kind of written to be a bigger development
Right,
than what
than
we're
what
using
this
it
is.
for when we're using these small parcels.
But even 415 was as well. But they did not have as far as that development structure plan as far as at the time of that meeting. So they were correct on that.
When we did the paddocks, basically you've let me move the property, move the buildings within 15 feet, which was closer because that was appropriate for that use. According to that, we would have been 50 feet back from Cavalier Drive, which would have made the
Exactly.
property almost.
But you
unusable.
started that prior to a whole lot of this being recopied over to
You
the
have to
county.
go to BZA first before you try to get the PUD, which
Yeah.
is what's so strange to
Still
me.
But you can't get a variance on
Something
F1.
is,
We don't have a single PUD in town that meets the requirements of that.
You
If
can't
you were
put
gonna
a
go back
PUD
to that
in
case,
town.
none of them do.
You can't put a PUD in town and meet a 50-foot setback.
It should have a variable setback for lot size.
Well,
Yeah.
it shouldn't even have a variable.
yeah.
It should have,
It should be what it is.
it should be what it is. It's a
Yeah.
common unit development.
Like
So
Kevin's.
the development and design for what use that is on that PUD has nothing to do with the variance or a setback. I mean, just like,
Juan, what is,
Maple Ridge, as far as your setback between your houses. You get side yard setback 10 feet for residential. All right, in there, you go back in there and there's a lot of them, they're not 20 feet apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they didn't need to meet setbacks,
well, and
because
there's
there
even
wasn't
things
setbacks
in
set for PUD.
state code that say you can have something like Maple Ridge that isn't even a PUD. Let's say it's R2 or R1 or whatever. have to be R2 in this case, if you were having multiple types of housing on it, that you can have a horizontal access model to that doesn't have interior lot lines, because the property can be owned by an owner who has an HOA on it, and you can sell the houses where you own the house, but not necessarily a lot. Does that make sense? And that's kind of how Maple Ridge works.
Right. It's,
So they don't own the
Yeah.
lot. So it's like a condo.
they
You
don't,
own the
no,
main-
because
Right.
under a PUD, you can't own it because it's all one owner. And you can sell it,
Because I don't think.
and if you sell the lot, that no longer is part of the PUD. So then that PUD would have to come forward to reapply to change that from the I mean, it'd be complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, right now, we're still looking at the PUD she's talking about as far as Tom Bessie was gonna do out there, and it's still as long as PUD.
The only, not to pick off topic, but the only other thing I wanted to make sure I let you know, Karen, this time of year gets together, open positions on boards. And, the only one that expires at the end of this year is Chester, you would have to let Karen know you're interested in staying on. It's a 4-year term. And she'll usually advertise all the open board positions, and there's quite a few open this year on various boards. So, that's the only one that expires. The rest of you are still on.
Mine's still on for PUD.
Apply to the town council president.
Yeah, you would actually submit a letter of interest, just telling them, I would like to stay on the BZA. Your position is a Republican one, so, you want to declare that you are still a Republican in that letter, because you have to have balanced boards.
Yeah.
But that's it,
Like the other one years ago.
yeah.
Do the rest of us get a vote? No, never mind.
I'd like to hear the vote.
So it's a 415 then, right now is still technically,
In here,
well, but it's
Still a C2.
it's still C2.
But Clevenger, no. owns it now.
Oh, Marar, Mike Stallings.
No action we have to take on them.
No, they are likely to go before the BZA now. And then they'll come back to rezone if they decide to rezone.
So if somebody wanted to buy that from them, and it's C2, if somebody wanted to put something that fits a C2 structure, would they even have to come before any of us?
Nope, nope,
No.
like a great barn.
Unless,
Yeah,
they might have to go before BZA if they couldn't meet the setbacks or,
Yeah.
you know.
but a C2 has that. So. Right now.
So somebody could buy it to put in an ice cream stand.
Yeah.
Or a gas station.
You could even have,
Tattoo parlor.
you could have a whole floor of commercial and then put condos above it and it's C2.
That fits C2, so it doesn't.
Yeah.
You could put a livery stable in there like there was originally.
Yeah, but you have to tie your horse up because it's law or not.
Just horsing
You
around.
gotta have a,
Somebody could put a dog kennel in there.
but I mean, you're talking about multiple options that people can use that lot for that would probably be
A great.
a lot more undesirable than what we could probably think of.
I know some places at Lake Station and then expand in the area.
Yeah.
So in regards to this meeting, it's May time, I'm sorry,
Uh-huh.
I'm switching us. But do we want that as a part of one of our meeting nights, or do we want that as a separate?
Like a work session.
Yeah.
If you want it under a work session, we can do that as well. I mean, or my opinion.
If you had a meeting night where you didn't have a case, I could see just, that's your agenda, is having that.
Problem
But
is,
Right.
we can't.
It could be
Really
months
plan.
before you have that,
Well,
yeah.
If it's, yeah,
Are we going to have a December meeting?
right now.
It appears that we're going to.
It appears it's more likely than not likely. So,
So there's really no sense to say, let's meet with MACOG on December
Yeah.
7th, 19th or whatever.
Well, no,
Unless you come in an hour early or something.
the
Like
deadline
that.
We
to,
do that a lot of times.
I can do that.
I think the deadline to advertise for your December meeting is a week from this Wednesday. So I'll know within a week and a half or so if you're gonna have another case come before you or a rezoning or some sort of hearing.
So if we do meet with MACOG, let's say that is our December 20th agenda, is that still open?
It'd be
People
public.
come in?
It'd be,
Hey, I don't care if they can, I'm
Yeah.
just
No, it
curious.
is.
Yeah, even if you schedule it separately as a work session, it still has to be public.
Okay, that's
yeah,
fine.
unless it's an executive.
I mean, I think the difference is it's just a work session, so it's not like there's public input.
Right.
as far-
And you're not
as far as
voting
the-
on anything.
Right.
So
Yes.
you can't vote during the work session.
The town council did pass your 3 changes on first pass, and they'll probably do second and third pass at the next meeting, because it was 5-0 vote. And they can do both passes, so eventually we don't have to advertise in just the Culver Citizen, and then I would send those changes up to Ty. He updates the electronic files for our zoning ordinance. He sends it back to us so we can put on our website, replace what we have out there. We'll print those for your books, and then we'll, I don't know, staple them to the wall to do.
And that's normal procedure.
Yeah.
But yeah,
We'll update the one we keep at town hall for when people come in and want to look at our ordinance, so we'll reprint it.
that's taken care of. I would like to ask a question about the ruling on 415. The actual ruling was that the PUD would not be zoned.
Yeah, you have to, it says you have to vacate your decision to rezone it. That the
Okay.
town must vacate that decision.
The town must, because I thought it said planning commission was the one
Yeah, it
that
does.
had vacated. So if the planning commission vacated, the town still has that opportunity. Not, because we're not a authority to have the zoning change, only the town could.
Yeah,
And if the town approved it and the town wasn't objecting, and the ruling wasn't objecting, I mean, this is something for,
Mr.
Clevenger.
Clevenger would not advise us to,
Right.
sustain the
I know,
support of it as being rezoned,
Mhm.
whether it's this plain commission or town or both.
I mean, they were trying to say as far as due process, whatever. Oh, I know. I'm not against that. I mean, I'm not saying anything I wouldn't say in there. Honestly. Because, I mean, it isn't a question. I don't understand why, if they ruled against one body that's not an authoritative body as far as the rezone, other than to recommend. And why they rule against the non-authoritative body and not rule against the authoritative body.
I do know.
You see what I'm saying? I know it's a technical, but it probably is a legal
Your
issue.
point is the order directed to
Yeah,
us, and we can't rezone
right.
to make some action, so.
It's true, we're just an
And
advisory.
it's just, information.
Yep.
Everything else? No?
Not that I can think of.
Okay,
Why?
all right. Any other old business, new business that anybody has seen or questions about or past experiences? Anybody? Phone calls?
That's some stuff with people asking about the,
The dunes.
yeah. I don't wanna know what's going on.
Yeah, they will have to decide, they've been working on their site plan, and they will have to decide if they're going to rezone, and if, what do they rezone to? As far as the public process with the Ready Grant, we've been meeting with South Bend Regional Partnership. They have a Ready committee headed up by a gal named Taryn McFarland. The town has not signed a contract yet on that grant. We have to submit paperwork, including a budget for the project. And it has to be basically documented, like our CRC's resolution is
part of that documentation, but so is the private investment. So, the LLC, Culver Equity LLC, they will have to provide documentation to the Ready Committee that says we are intending to spend this much money. If they already have their loans lined up, they would provide that. If they don't, they provide it at a later time when they get it. They'd still have to have a commitment letter. So all of that has to take place just for us to sign the contract on the grant. Then also we have to create a TIF area there for redevelopment to be able to invest those dollars. That'll go through a public hearing. It also goes through a public hearing with town council. Rezoning, if they rezone, will go through you guys and the town council. So there's lots of processes that will have to take place for them to get their ducks in a row for that project. I think we had some input at our council meeting 2 meetings ago, and one of the people who spoke against this project, I think, was under the understanding, he asked the question, why can't other developers bid on this? And I believe he's a developer. This is not a public process in terms of the land being owned and the people who want to build on it. However, with the Ready grant, anything we apply those Ready dollars to will go through procurement. So it's particularly if it costs more than $250,000, the federal dollars involved in a grant, you have to go through procurement, just like we do with our Okra grants. So let's say we put the Ready dollars toward the utilities and infrastructure, which is the plan. They've defined what qualifies as utilities and infrastructure. And infrastructure can be the lighting, it could be the clubhouse amenities, the pool, the sidewalks, the roads, the sewer, stormwater, water, all of those qualify. So the redevelopment's matching dollars and those Ready dollars have to be budgeted out in a chart before they even sign these agreements with the town. And that's what we're working on, getting that in order now. And what we'll probably do, I've suggested to the town council and the redevelopment commission is hire a grant administrator who does federal grants, because that's what we've done with our Okra grants. This will go through, you have to do heavy documentation of your procurement, your invoicing, all of that. And we prefer to hire a third party. And we use Shannon McLeod, who's the one who trains people on how to be grant administrators in the state of Indiana. She's done all our Okra stuff. So at least that'll be my recommendation to both of those boards. And, you know, as far as public input, there will be rezoning, there will be TIF, there will be plenty of time for people to have their input. Yeah. And I don't know yet, they will have to do an application for rezoning. If they try to get to your December meeting, we'll get that the next week and a half. Otherwise, it would come to you in January or February, whenever they're ready.
You know, when we annexed the Howard property, all the way through up there to the Howard property, and that was in the, and you do the, whatever you want to call it, but as far as financial cost versus the gain as far as any property.
Yeah.
Which the bank is used to that, we don't.
We're obligated to get utilities to the Howard property.
In 30 days or something like that.
It's like within a couple of years of annexation, and that time has passed. He's not been in any hurry because he's on a septic, but if that were to fail, he would have to tie into our sewer water. So we've got to get it to that end of town anyway.
Right.
So timing wise, going through the housing development.
As far as everything going, I mean, it's not doing something now just because somebody's wanting to do this, because it's already annexed several years ago. And it was just held up, honestly, between the agreement between the town and the Howard property, because they were the only ones that
And currently those parcels are, the one furthest north next to our water plant is an R2. But as you go south, Wade's properties are A1. R2 allows just about any housing type right now. A1, I think it's single family homes, manufactured. There's a few different types of housing allowed in A1. So,
The gate property,
pardon?
That's wrong.
Yeah, when I look on Beacon,
Our map shows R2 through all of those properties all the way down to Howard's.
yeah,
they're not all
the garden
R2.
court. Yeah,
Two of them are A1.
it shouldn't have been A1 or S1, I don't think it should have actually been, but
That map can't be right.
I think this map is probably right, but A1 is only things outside of annexed area.
He's on Beacon, two of his lots are A1, and they have looked at that.
Isn't this generated from Beacon though? Wasn't it?
I have no idea.
I'm pretty sure those things got rezoned to R2. So I think it may be a record keeping at the county that's off. If you went back and looked at
Well, that's good to know.
you're gonna have to search back through minutes, but it doesn't that, isn't that right, Barry? I think all that
I
was,
think you are right.
When would that have been rezoned, do you know?
it was rezoned shortly after it was annexed and when, Garden Court went in. So I'm thinking
That's kind of wild.
in the
Yeah.
2010
It was when,
timeframe.
So that's about when we did Garden Court.
it's, what it was, no? Yeah. 2010,
Okay, well, I'll check.
2011.
I don't think there was R2 at that time. Because we didn't,
You did
we had
garden
R2
court.
at that time, but I think it was because Garden Court had to be R2. I think that's when that kind of happened.
Everything around it.
So that's when R2 was created?
No, we had R2 before that. I was thinking the R3 because we had pushed that R3 on some of the stuff. But I think that's R2 all the way through because Garden Court needed it.
This is Russ.
I mean,
Yeah, Russ?
If you look on a GIS, it all looks like it's R2 to me.
Two of them come up as A1 when we were
When you
on.
say two of them, what, you mean the two big parcels?
Well, there were two lots around Garden Court that were A1. The largest lot is R2.
There were two separate lots. McGee finally bought the second one, but at one time someone else owned it. But that whole area, all the way down to Howard, including Howard, was all rezoned to R2.
Okay, well. I'll
And
see
that's
if
the
I
way,
can
and that's the way the
confirm it.
GIS reflects it, as far as I can see.
GIS says R2. GIS says R2.
Because even Wade got two of them were A1.
A1 here.
Yeah, that one's A1. That's one of them.
Second lot.
So we didn't create A1 until recently. That was in the last zoning changes that we created in A1.
we didn't even have an A1.
No,
We had an A1.
Well, Bob, there's two of them showing up A1 right here. When you go to the,
Yeah, the two south of Garden Court show.
How's that?
Show A1,
There's something-
R2 is west and north. of
Yeah,
it.
there's one that's A1, there's one that's R2.
that's not right.
Come on, this out.
but that is generated from that. When you ask them to do that, they update their
Talking about the whole
general.
area
I'm
between.
telling you, I'm looking at them.
Yeah.
But I think this is,
Highway.
Yeah,
I think you
I'll
go
have
back and go
to,
through the 2010.
Green has to get that straight west.
Because it's happened before where they've
The deer run.
flipped
okay.
something.
I don't think, that's
I will confirm that because
that's
that,
industrial.
I mean, Kevin could be right. It's not showing up that way here. Two of the lots Bob just clicked on, which are Wade's, are
You need to
A1.
go back in the minutes because I'm of the town council, because I'm sure that that whole area off and all the way down to Howard's was rezoned R2. I don't know how those A1s ended up.
There's two
They never got-
A1s north of Howard's.
Some of it's showing up as R2, some of it's showing up as A1.
Is it everything as far as on the roadside R2 and then the other lots that you're finding they want?
Because
are they
at that
off
time, Russ was very big on, you couldn't have S1 in town.
Right.
You know, so it was changed when it was annexed.
Well, I can at least check the minutes and find out, because maybe it just didn't get recorded.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have thought it'd ever been A to start with.
No, it could, A's fairly new.
Well, he
used
was
to have an A.
farming it though.
That would be S1. We
But it's
didn't
still
even have an
permissible
A
S1.
until the last time we changed the zoning ordinance, which was after that. A came up when we did the changes with the territorial boundary and we took in some more areas. That's when we created an A because it matched up with the county on some of those.
The give and take between the county last time that we did.
So is it
That would
possible
be-
that Ralph Booker just made them A1s without us knowing?
We recorded it, I can't say.
Okay, I'll dig into it with Ty and I'll go through the minutes so that we can actually confirm that. I'm glad we brought this up though. Cause if it's all R2, they may not want rezone, I don't know. Figure it out.
Yeah.
So. not really
Anything else?
No, I-
We don't need to go. Recorded. Citizen input, we got, yeah, there's 3 this week.
I just wanted to throw out, I guess I consider it a land planning issue. So to toss it out to you guys first. With the dunes going in and the increase in traffic on South Main Street, is this an opportunity to do something with the intersection between South Main Street and Davis Street and Ohio Street, all that through there? On the dunes plans, they're not really doing anything in that corner. So it's a possibility that we could ask them for some land as part of this to fix that intersection. On top of this, and I don't know how much you guys are aware, but the town does have plans of developing the old Pinterest property. That's gonna add more at that corner with activity there. So can we do something better?
You
with
talk
that
about extending
intersection?
South Ohio.
Please.
Well, that's the thing, in the comp
Please.
plan, it shows a roundabout there,
Oh, dude.
a potential for a roundabout.
For a second.
Well, I mean,
And you can do that, you could almost push it all onto their property, but it's not in an area that they're working on. So and the other thing,
It also though depends on, we have an easement on Davis Street for a well. And if we put a well on that property where Penders was, 100 feet around that well has to be clear. I don't know that it's partially under a road already, but I don't know. We'd have to probably do it pre-well versus post-well. I'd have to look into that with Ida.
but it just looks like this is an opportunity.
Yeah.
And once it's locked down, they're not gonna give it away. But as part of a rezoning or as part of an approval, we could ask for something there.
We'd like to have MACOG come in and take a look at that whole
Right.
area
Yeah.
and give us some input on that.
But you brought it up, because I mean, I was gonna put this as well, because I know we talked about the development anyway. Because we do remember, I know you will, I'm not sure who else, remember one time we were talking about having a gateway out 17 in that area.
It's on the comp plan that we
And
would
it's on the
extend
top plan to actually bring it in, and this
West
is
Shore Drive. out to 17.
subdivision is going there, it would be a perfect time to include that at the time. I don't know if the grant that you're talking about would even come in close to being used anyway to put a road. But I know-
Well, we'd like to have MACOG look at that though, because we have had some, already some input from citizens who would like to extend Wabash Street out to
I mean, I was
17.
even thinking. the
Or
Wabash
West
Street,
Shore Drive out to
Yeah.
17.
But I know
But
if
you also have to
all the way out
keep in
to
mind the neighborhood.
Sage.
Are you gonna have semi trucks come through a new neighborhood? And do we want that coming from the south end of town north through town? Or force those trucks to keep coming?
You've already got Winnebagos and everything else going to be coming to the.
You've already.
No, Blue Jays.
Yeah.
So you've got those coming in as far as storage on the corner.
Traffic comes by my house.
That's already an issue from the public.
We would like to have MACOG do a study though for us to say, here's what you're looking at if you added this much housing. This is what'll impact on traffic. Here's that weird intersection that has 3 roads kind of,
Do they count golf carts for traffic?
They ought to be.
They better.
They ought to be
Double.
better. They ought to be considered better. traffic
I think
violation.
you count anything that is considered a motorized vehicle. or- But we also, like, this is the slow time of year for traffic, so do we do that? We want to have them look at it in general, but then during the surge season, maybe you do your traffic counts and that sort of stuff.
July.
But it does impact on the design of that development if you look at 17, you look at the intersection. You know, 'cause that, if you did a roundabout there, if you look in the comp plan, I want to say it's like page 80 something. There's a picture of the current intersection there, and then there's a picture of what it would look like with a roundabout. And you would have to take part of the
Trees.
southwest corner or northwest corner of their parcel to get that roundabout to fit.
Northeast.
Northeast.
Yeah, the only house on. there.
Yes.
The only house next to the.
Yeah.
Look at it.
The only.
No, it wouldn't, you wouldn't have to do that.
Southwest
house,
is
you'd be
a-
taking their
The
property.
roundabout.
It'd just be their parking lot, wouldn't it, as far as the, yeah, they'll stay, you're talking.
Oh,
around
a roundabout
or-
takes up a
I
lot.
would push the roundabout
Yes.
into the northeast corner of the dunes, which they are not having housing or anything in. They would still have over 100 feet of buffer between it.
True enough.
Now, optimally, I would tell them to change their entrance too, so it comes into that roundabout instead of being offset from Tampa Street next to Garden Court, because that's kind of a mess. You're gonna have two coming out right there together. Now, I know this is just their preliminary plans, but this is the time for you guys to give them some input and say, this is what we'd like to see.
That's what I'm saying.
Rather than have them get all the way through their development and bring it in for their final
Yeah, I'd hate to see everybody
PUD
come in.
PUD approval, and then you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, because imagine when trucks trying to move.
I mean, you go down there and you can hit them roundabouts down there and see what it's like. It's dangerous.
Roundabouts are significantly safer. I drive
They
fire trucks
are.
every single day.
Down
I'll
there.
tell you they're significantly safer.
96th Street, I'm telling you what, if you don't get your.
Jenny, I'm not sure if you're aware, but there is
And
a
then trucks,
Crazy.
they're good for
ingress
fender
egress
benders, but they're
easement
safer.
already on the north side of Garden
A lot
Court
less stopping and
that
starting,
was platted.
which is usually where that.
So that could probably be switched over to a right of way.
And
It's actually was set up to do that because it's lined up on the north lines of Garden Court. It's lined up as a center line of Tampa Street.
But I think it ought to be considered an access to type of feedback or somewhere if you're gonna have.
I think better.
I understand.
Right.
I just thought this was probably the best group to start with, and if we wait too long, it's hard on them and stuff, so if you guys want to think about it, that's the thing, so.
Well, MACOG would not charge to come down and start doing a review of that property. We could have a couple of you walk it with them if you wanted to, or, you know.
Be interesting.
I'd be down for that.
Not during deer.
All right, moving on.
Thank you for your citizen input.
Thank you for the citizen input. And next would be commission members' concerns and input. I'll start out one thing, because we're talking about the fences, and I was thinking about this the other night. Kevin has been put in limbo on his fence. Not his fence, but the fence next to his property. And we're told that there's nothing really that can be done at this point, and I don't understand that either, because it should be Kevin's right to file an appeal with the BZA under this being non-compliant structure next to his property, because it is affecting his.
I
property.
know that Chuck talked to Jeanette about this and at one point Jim, but Jeanette's take was you can't hold the current property owner responsible for something two property owners ago did without suffering some consequences from that.
Right, but you're still at the process.
I get it.
Yeah, I'm
You want to
saying,
fill up that?
no, I understand.
But various
I understand
things, I
both
brought it
sides
up
of
back then, and this body and Chuck didn't act.
Didn't do anything.
Yeah,
So I was harmed by inaction of the town.
you were, but I mean, your property still is in a way harmed by the non-complying structure.
My thing with it, I'm not gonna fight a bunch about it, and I don't want the town to get into an issue on it, other than it is non-conforming now. and it wasn't supposed to be there, it's a wood fence. It's not gonna last forever. How do we get it established that you cannot build that back, you cannot repair it, you can't paint it, you can't replace boards? Because that section of it is non-conforming. So
Well-
you can keep it there as long as it stands up, but when it falls down, it's done.
No, you can't take
have
a
it there anymore.
non-conforming structure and build it back just because it fell down. I mean, you can't replace it.
But
But I mean, that's the way.
nobody is going to watch that.
No, I know. I mean, it's gonna be up to you. Almost. I mean, I don't know any other way. How are you gonna get it? Even if you document it,
Don't they have to get a permit?
Huh?
Don't they have to get a
to
permit?
redo it, to fix it.
Well, if they're gonna replace it.
Didn't they have to do?
If they replace the fence,
Yeah.
then they would have to get a permit, I think. I know Chuck has not been doing it, but I still think anytime you replace a fence with another fence.
Are you asking me to talk to the current homeowners?
I mean,
Is that the
we've
bottom
got
line?
We've got a fence ordinance, right?
We got fence orders, yes, so that's the whole thing. The fence ordinance, this is.
Right, so.
To me, I think Kevin will be able to come to the BZA. And BZA could rule that it be removed regardless who owns it, because they have, how much? It's
Tell
not,
me the address again.
you know what I'm saying? Not
Mine's
who's got it.
12,
I mean,
Okay.
if I were the property owner, I
Like
would
Sean.
want it,
make sure, right?
Mine,
I would want it to be,
exactly.
It's right across
I don't know
from
that would be a
413.
problem for them either.
You know, it could be that no one ever talked to the current homeowners. I don't know if Chuck did or not.
I've got a good. feeling.
So
Certainly.
I'm at least willing to approach them and
$20.
find out.
Are they year-round residents?
I don't know.
No.
No.
Periodically.
I don't know how a lot of that got approved. That house, it's got a porch without a railing on it that's 24 or
Yeah.
30 inches above the ground.
Yeah.
It's got the fence that doesn't conform. I don't know who was paying attention to anything. The building inspector, which was Chuck part of that time, but there's a bunch of problems that shouldn't have happened.
That railing astounds me, driving by there going, how is that legal?
It's not.
Yeah.
What?
They should have never gotten a
30 inches.
certificate of occupancy on that building.
30 inches, what you got? Anything over 30 inches off the ground has to have a railing.
I didn't
Okay.
even think it used to have to be 30. It was like 20 something before.
It's 30 inches, pretty sure.
Little kid, that's a long way.
Everybody put bushes in there.
I will reach out to the homeowners and at least inquire.
I mean, that'd be one step. I mean, for the sake of it, not just because it's Kevin, but any other citizen comes in and wants to know what can be done under these circumstances. It might be a fence, but it might be another issue as well.
Yeah.
Anything. If it's non-conforming and it's affecting for whatever reason.
I think that's the bigger issue at hand, that if you're able to slip something by and then sell it, that it just lives like that forever.
Yeah,
There's nothing we
exactly.
can do about it. I
And
mean,
that's
that's
not right.
And then is it grandfathered? or
right.
is it like-
Yeah. At what point does?
There's issues on the east side as far as, you know, as far as containing your water. There's issues over on the east side right now, and Kevin probably knows exactly what I'm talking about. Property where the water comes down is actually eroding part of somebody else's property. But it wasn't their property at the time that it started. But yet, they don't address it. I'm saying, I mean,
How do we enforce that, by the way? Because there is an ordinance that says you can't
Exactly.
create water runoff, and I
Right.
have that same situation on another property. How is that enforceable, or is it a civic? You know, I talked to the town attorney about this on a different property. Because is it a civil matter where you have to go,
right.
you
I have
know,
the same
and say, this
question.
person's creating all this water runoff onto my property, because we don't currently have a fine for that.
I mean, you can report it to, I mean, a lot of on the east side, I mean, you've got water coming off their property, going on somebody else's property.
Right, but
Into
how
the
do you
lake.
enforce it? The
And so
water
you got it
runoff
thrown
ordinance.
into the lake,
Yeah.
then you can bring
Is that
I
question been asked of the?
DNR.
Yeah, all of those.
All those. You know, it wouldn't necessarily have to be a civic, the civil suit, anything like that.
I mean, it shouldn't,
Give the DNR something to do.
I mean, maybe it is that we need to have an associated fine with that ordinance, but I need to understand that. That would be another good question for the people reviewing our own ordinance.
But I mean,
That's a separate-
because if they sold that property and that's happened on their property and it's still violating, it's not compliant with our ordinances.
Can you send me the address for that? Because I don't know which one you're referring to. I know of one on over here.
Where you talking about as part of where the road is.
I guess my question, Jenny, is that I understand that you can't fine them or anything for doing it, but why are they allowed to keep it?
Yeah.
When you take 2 sections down and solve this. So it doesn't cost
Oh,
them
on the
anything.
fence for
On the
back the
fence.
house. So
I mean,
like
what
the
if,
water
what if
went
I
on the
decide
fence.
to build something in my backyard that I'm not allowed to? And then I sell the property. Now we've got,
Now it's okay.
now it's
Right.
okay.
Okay, that's a good point.
I mean, at some point or another, it's
But we
gotta
do
be,
have that on alleys,
Hmm?
where people have built on alleys and the property gets sold and you bought this thing that has a shed on an
yeah,
alley.
and then we were looking at that issue as well, when you can build back on the same footprint. When it's not complying to the point that it's on an alley,
Yeah. or
I don't think that it's abused. That ordinance is too vague.
Ignorance is not.
You've got lake houses, people are coming in building on the same footprint, then they get a variance to add everything else. So that's not the whole
10%
purpose of being able to build on the same footprint.
Is it possible to put a flag on the property? Like, you can't do anything about making them take it down, but if you put something on it, so when they go to try and sell it and they start looking at the records, it's like, this is a non-conforming thing, so you can't take action against the current homeowner, but they're not gonna be able to sell it the way it is.
Something resembling a lien, but not necessarily an ordinance.
Yeah. So it's not really taking any action, it's
You go to
dirty
sell
in
it, you
it.
should have to do something about it.
Yeah, you gotta make it comply.
It should not be sold as is.
That's what Chuck was supposed to have done. He was supposed to have done that with the C of O, that they weren't gonna be allowed to get the C of O until they took it down. And he said he did that and didn't.
And there wasn't even the C of O ever issued.
Well, if there's not, you could shut them down on that, because you can't be living in it without a C of O.
You,
I mean, there's several homes, I'm sure.
you wouldn't have your utilities turned on without a C of O.
Yeah.
There
And then-
had to have been one issue
Right.
because Bob gets it. We don't do the utility
Right.
hookup.
Because I know at one time, even the C of O had to be signed by our building commissioner as well as the county inspector. And that is no longer,
No, we have Bob
Did-
sign off
did you-
now.
you have Bob sign?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we had one case where we weren't notified. The county inspector issued the certificate of occupancy. And they basically had free water and sewer for a month.
The reason
Bob
we-
realized they were in there and
Right.
said,
But the
wait a
reason we
minute,
had the
what's
building
happened?
commissioner sign it is because to make sure before the C of O that whole thing for
Matt.
met as far as whether it be a variance wasn't overdone or,
Well, we could request
They
that if
added-
we want that. We can tell the county, we don't want certificates of occupancy issued without building commissioner and utility manager sign off.
I mean, that's why we had it before and I never thought about having for utilities and stuff. But I assume that would be put on there regardless. You don't miss the water bill. But yeah, I think it's a good idea. I mean, anything that we can cover issues like this right here.
For what it's worth, this is Russ. When I was building commissioner, I was the one who signed the certificate of occupancy, not
Exactly.
the inspector.
I think that's probably a good idea. And even if the inspector wants to sign because he does the final inspection, he should still make sure the local controls are in place where because like that one that Bob didn't know about. They were just using the water and sewer.
Russ, you were the only one that had to sign it?
So that's correct. I signed it.
And
You know,
he was
and
notified.
I consulted with the inspector, of course, made sure everything was done, all electrical, everything was right. And then I issued the actual certificate of occupancy.
Thank you, Russ. Appreciate it.
Any other council members?
Well, we talked about a lot of concerns and everything else. Anybody else got any? input? Yeah, I mean, I do bad, I mean, continue looking at these ordinances, because they are coming back, every so often already.
Can we make ordinances? Or something?
I wish we could, it's a town issue, but maybe we could
What
recommend.
would you like to?
We could probably recommend it. We're recommending
I've already seen one guy get flown out on my street corner, like, flown out by a helicopter.
Wow.
Another guy where the wheel got ripped up, shredded off.
Wait, flown out
Oh,
by
yeah.
a helicopter?
You had to be medevac.
it.
Yeah.
Not about.
Oh,
Yeah.
What about
okay.
the woman that passed
That's
away?
made it to something like.
Yeah.
Went out,
that's-
out Main Street, so off a golf cart, leaving
Oh, yeah.
the barn,
Oh, yeah.
fell off and died.
Yeah.
Didn't even make the papers a year or two ago. Oh,
Well, there's no.
yeah, you're right. I'll say that, you're right.
Some of the results could have been the same regardless of mode of transportation. Decisions leading up to.
Can't let you get.
You were riding on the outside of the car, maybe.
I mean, the main issue, I mean,
Seatbelts on my boat.
you're riding across, and you're riding in a way that can throw you off and kill you.
Motion
I'm
to
gonna
adjourn.
say that, that's your problem, that you're gonna kill somebody else.
Was that a motion, Don?
I was asking if we had a motion to adjourn. Some parts are being.
Motion to adjourn.
It's not ours.
Okay.
Chester second. I third. Aye.
Hey.